In a video a while back now, don't ask me which one, I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I showed off this little guy here. Another thing I can't remember was the purpose of showing it off either. But this little guy here is actually the very first amigurumi I ever made. And now, like with years more experience, I can tell that there's, you know, an issue or two with it. But at the time, I was so proud of making this. I mean, like, to be honest, I'm still proud because, like, it was an achievement. It was my first ever amigurumi, despite a few little hiccups, including sewing on the spots backwards because I didn't know which were the right sides of the stitches, which were the wrong sides of the stitches. So I sort of just tossed a coin and picked a side, and I picked wrong. But yeah, this little guy has like sat in my room ever since, just as a kind of cute little reminder of how far I've come since those early days. But something I've been wanting to do for the longest time now is not recreate this, but make my own version of an octopus, but do so in a way that sort of like represents all the accumulated crochet knowledge I've gained over these last several years. And in addition to that, there's a couple of other like requirements I'm setting myself. Number one, I want this amigurumi to be on the larger side. I've always enjoyed making like larger amigurumi. It's just like the last couple of years, I haven't been able to indulge in that as much just because it takes me like so long to do anything, and with my pain like gradually getting worse, that's also made it a little bit more difficult. So I tend to stick to more reasonable sized pieces so I can create more of them. But for this specific piece, I want to go back to my roots and make a big ass amigurumi. And the second thing I want to do is kind of lean into a more realistic style. Normally I prefer to go with a more cartoonish look. You can see that in like my yarnivore. Even the axolotl here might be a good example, but usually realism is just not something I try and achieve with my amigurumi, but I want to at least attempt it in this video. So the first thing I want to do is sketch myself out an octopus, something I can use as a bit of a reference. So you're the supervisor. One of my other projects just hanging out here casually in the background. You go there for a second. We don't need you right now, but you can hop there and supervise next to my octopus mug. It's really on point today. But yeah, I want to sketch out an octopus. I just want to sort of get a rough idea of something that I might like to create. And I actually managed to procure my sketch pad. So if you've seen the last couple of videos where I had to use a notebook instead, you will be spared the ugly lines in this one. However, you will not be spared the children's drawings. It is so hard to find a free page in this sketchbook. But I'm going to distinguish myself from the colors by using grey. So that is sort of just a very rough sketch of the kind of thing I would like to go for. And another reason I kind of wanted to sketch it out like this is because there are some decisions I need to make before I start crocheting this piece. You know what? We don't need you on anymore. Actually, yes, we might. Hang on, re-record. Stop, go back, re-record. So back to what I was saying. There are a few decisions that need to be made. Number one is how I want to start off this piece, because as far as I can tell, we've got maybe three options. The first is starting with the tentacles and basically working this piece bottom up. So we crochet all the tentacles. I was going to call them tentacles then, wrong word. And then we bring all 8 together and crochet the remaining body off that. Second option is to start with the head and essentially do the opposite. We start at the head, work our way out, and then separate into the 8 tentacles. Now, because I want to make this piece as realistic as I can, the shape of the body is also going to include like the eyes set on the top. And if I position those, so this section here, if I work on this section first, I could potentially then crochet the head off that and then the tentacles off that. So rather than starting at one end and working our way down, we'll be sort of working in the center and then working out from either side. the problem is I don't know what is going to produce the best result. What I am kind of leaning towards though is crocheting the head, so crochet the head portion, and then doing something. I'm not deliberately trying to be vague, I just don't know what that something is yet, but doing something to create the eyes and then continuing on to do the legs. But say I crochet to this point of the head, right? So that's all my rounds there. I've done that in a round. Then if I get to this point, I can bring in a pre-crocheted piece. So there might be a piece I can add to here to create the bump for the eyes. And I just crochet that into the round here and then continue crocheting like that. So that is one option. Option 2 is to crochet to this point again and then work whatever shape I need back and forth in rows, and then join the bottom of this section to this section, and from that point carry on crocheting the rest of the body and the legs or the tentacles. Then the third option, which I don't know if I should include this or not, because it might be too narrow to serve the purpose that I want, but that is to crochet to this point again, then create a chain, continue crocheting in the round, so that will add some width to our chain here, and then join this end to the other side of the head again. And like, the unfortunate thing is me sitting here speculating is not going to get me anywhere. The only way I'm going to know what's going to work best is if I start crocheting. So I think the play is going to be start crocheting, but I'll only crochet up to about like here or so. Like, doing that, I can lock in the size that I want and all that. But once I have reached that point, I might stop and make a couple of smaller pieces in a similar shape, but use those to test out each of the concepts. So I can test out the chain, the working with rows, and the bringing in a separate crochet piece, which I can crochet into the head. And then I can take what I learned from experimenting with those and apply it to the larger piece and hope that it translates well enough that I won't have to do too much frogging. I mean, let's be realistic here. I'm going to have to do some. That always happens when you're designing an amigurumi, especially one that is as large as this. But if I can just reduce the amount I have to do even a tiny bit, I will be happy with that. All right, so that's where I'm going to start. And to be real with you, this is probably the most difficult piece of the pattern. I think once we overcome this hurdle here of how we're going to do the shaping, working down for the rest of the body and into the tentacles is not going to be so difficult. I think as long as we get the maths right and the tentacles are the same width and all that, we should be fine. It's really just this area here that is tripping me up a little bit. As is tradition, we're going to start off with 6 single crochet in a magic circle. And also, as has become tradition, we're going to listen to the ferret noises in the background. So that's what we've got so far. I have increased out to 72 stitches, but I'm thinking at this point, what I do now is introduce some shaping to the bottom. And in order to achieve that, I'm just going to stack my increases down here. So the top should remain fairly flat at this point, at least until I get, closer to the eyes. I'll start decreasing down then. But for now, I want the bulk of the shape to come from the bottom of the octopus. I'm guesstimating that I've crocheted out enough. So at this point, I think I'm going to start decreasing down. But because I want a bit more of a subtle decrease, I think I'm going to break up those decrease rounds with just rounds of single crochet. What are you stuck on? I don't know. As long as it's not a ferret, I don't care. Anywho, this is what we have managed to achieve so far. You have to picture it sort of like tilted at a bit of an angle, and also it'll probably be a slightly better shape when there's stuffing in it. But before I go ahead and add that stuffing, there is a step before that, and that is to somehow incorporate the section for the eyes. Now, if I am remembering correctly, and to be totally honest with you, I don't trust myself to do that right now, but if I am, I did say back at the start of this video that I was going to like whip up like some little prototypes and trial several different versions of how I could possibly do that. But I am going to level with all of you. Not only am I still experiencing, you know, quite a bit of hand pain, but I have spent the entire night in the emergency room. Everything is as okay as it can be, like right now. But yeah, you are going to be getting grumpy, sleep deprived, spent 12 hours on hard hospital chairs Lee for this section of the video. So I apologize in advance for that. But yes, grumpy, sleep deprived, pain riddled Lee, she does not have the patience for doing all of that fiddly work. Crocheting the additional, actually, I don't know why I was trying to, you know, recall from memory. I literally have my sketchbook right here. I blame the sleep deprivation. But anyway, yeah, so this is what I was talking about. I literally drew it out. But yeah, I was going to make 3 separate pieces like this, and I think I was going to try joining a separate piece, chaining, and working in rows. But like I was saying to you guys, I just don't have that in me right now. But I do really want to continue with this project. So what my game plan instead is going to be to basically combine 2 of those original ideas that I had. I'm going to chain. Firstly, I'm going to chain. Tilly, can we please stop making noise? Not in the mood this morning, ferret. Oh, that's so mean. I didn't mean it. I take it back. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain at this point, because I would still like to decrease down on the body for somewhere between, I don't know, maybe 4 and 6 rounds. So I'll add the chain at the top here, but as I work around that, I will continue to decrease down the bottom here. But once I've done that and thickened out the chain portion a little bit, I'm then considering making separate eye pieces. Thank you, Tilly. Making separate eye pieces and then bringing them into the body piece and crocheting them together. I have done similar things in previous patterns and it has worked out okay. The only issue is that obviously I've never made an octopus before, so I haven't done it in this particular shape. Though I do know that the technique itself does work in other contexts, so hopefully it will work out here. The issue that I am facing though is I don't quite know how long I need to make that initial chain. So perhaps the first thing I should do is actually make those eye pieces that I want to insert into the body. That might be how I approach this. So I am going to create basically an ovular socket, an eye socket, if you will, and make 2 of those, and we'll crochet those into the body. All right. Hi, Tilly. Yes. Hi, Noisy. Hi, Noisy. Why are you always going to make noise when I'm filming? But you gotta go play with your toys, because I've got eyes to crochet. Unless you want to donate yours. Yours might be a little bit small though. They might be a little bit small. Off you go. This is the eye shape that I came up with. I think I'm in the ballpark with it. So if I place it against the head, I mean, that is the size of the eyes in comparison to what will be the body piece. I do think I'm in the ballpark, but chances are I'm going to have to make some adjustments at some point. But for now, I'm going to leave it as it is. And before I do my chaining, I will go ahead and make myself a second one. Not only did I crochet myself the eye sockets that I needed, I also went ahead and crocheted 2 eyeballs. I don't know if I will strictly need them for the next step. I just thought it might be nice to have them to help the eye sockets retain their shape. So that's essentially what I've got there. I might at some point dress up the eyes, like A, I need to add a pupil, but B, I might add color changes or something like that. But for this next step, I just wanted a basic eye, as I said, to help the piece retain its shape, if that's even necessary. I now need to work out the maths of this entire thing. So the first thing I want to do is sort of like locate the center of the underside here. So my piece, it does increase, whoop, they're too high, increase out, then it's flat for a bit and then it decreases down. I want to, if I fold this in half, so that's, I'd say that's roughly the center. Let's count out how many stitches that was. So where was that? About there. 9, 10. Okay, so about 10. I'm going to pop you in there. All right, let's just do another double check. So if I flatten that, yeah, okay. So writing this down as I go so I don't forget. So part A, let's crochet ourselves 10 single crochet. Okay, now that I have my 10 stitches, which has gotten me to sort of the center of the increases / decreases, I want to make a chain, and this chain needs to be long enough that it will partially wrap around the eye socket piece. I have a feeling that might be too short, so if I get you, pop you in there. Yeah, I want it to be a bit, or have a bit more coverage than that. So maybe 12, 11, 12. That still doesn't cover very much ground. You know what? We might go up to 15 or 16. That will hopefully wrap around sort of most of the eye. See, that's the thing. When it comes to patterns like this, it's really just a matter of trial and error. For now, I think I'm going to stick with the 16 chains, and then, all right, write that down. And then starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to make our way down. So I want to do 15 here. And then what I'm going to do is just pop a stitch marker, a purple stitch marker, into that 15th single crochet, just as sort of a visual reminder that, hey, that is where the chain stitches ended. It's one of those things that it might not even be necessary, but if I lose my place as I'm, making shit up as I go during the rest of the round, I can always come back to this point and I know exactly what it is. So that is the very first round of, I don't know what we're calling this, the forehead, the eye ridge, the brow ridge, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's the first round. So I've got the pink marker, which denotes the end of my chain stitches here. I'm going to pop another one into this side when I work up the chain in my next round. And then the yellow stitch markers, they sort of denote the decreases. So I've done decreases in between those two. And hopefully if I've positioned them correctly, they should be, they should start and end on the sides of the octopus here. And then, of course, my blue stitch markers is just the start / end of my round. But that has, worked out well so far. All I really need to do at this point is for the next, I don't know, maybe 4 rounds. I'm going to go with 4 at the moment. I'm going to continue working in the round, but also working around the chain to broaden that out. And then once it's reached a width that I think is adequate, we're going to add these guys in. progress from the other day. I mean, it doesn't look like very much in the grand scheme of things, but it was pretty much all my brain could handle. But I've reached the point now where I'm guesstimating I'm at the right width. Potentially I could add another round or two, or hell, I could even frog a round or two. But I'm really not going to know if this width is the Goldilocks one, the correct one, until I've put the eyes in and, can you stop for a minute, and continued crocheting the entire pattern. So once I get this ferret off me, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, come on you. So I've just popped some stitch markers in my eye socket pieces, and I've left a space of 3 stitches between them. Those are going to be my free stitches when I finish crocheting them into the body, because I plan to have this piece that I've made just wrap around the majority of the eye. Will that be like too much? Possibly, but to reiterate what I said before, I'm not going to know that until I crochet it. What I might do before I start crocheting though is try and figure out what stitches I'm going to attach the eyes to, which is why I've grabbed out some additional stitch markers. So I did plan for this to be the right eye, and I think, is that right? Yeah, that one, and that one on the left. Hang on, what were we on? We were on round 55, already at 55, is complete. I don't quite know how I feel about it just yet. Like, I'm thinking this part might be a little bit too... Tilly, if you could not shake the camera, that would be fantastic. Bloody ferret. Hey, yeah, I'm thinking this part might be a little bit too square, but as I've said like 6 times already, I'm not really going to know that until I crochet the rest of this octopus. What I do want to do first, however, is just pop the eyes into their sockets, because maybe that will give me a sort of better feel for how this is going to look once it's finished. Now, these eyes at the moment are kind of placeholders. I do want to add more detail to the eyes, but I don't know if I'm going to do that like via crocheting additional pieces and sewing them on, or if I'm just going to like come back later and re-crochet this eye pattern but including color changes, or perhaps it could be a combination of those things. I don't know, but for now at least I've got something I can pop in here just to help me suss out the shaping a little bit. So if we try and picture it, the octopus like eyes are going to sit at the top here, and the head is going to angle back slightly. That's probably going to be a little bit more upright than I was picturing, because I do need to crochet the body off of this section. I mean, potentially we could figure out some way to like weight this side down a bit, but that also is going to be a later problem. For now, I want to continue on and crochet like the body section, and the body section is going to include the tentacles. So I guess we better do that, huh? I've crocheted, what was it, 4 or 5 rounds after I inserted the eyes, and I was going to keep just increasing out until I, hit the point that I wanted to include the tentacles. But I'm thinking what I might do instead is create a space for the, what are they called, the little siphons that come out the side of the octopus. And I reckon I'll be able to do that just simply by skipping stitches. So my start/end of the round is not in a great spot for that. So we might shift that. So I'll crochet around to the other side first, and I'll skip however many stitches, and we'll see how that looks. I mean, I think that kind of looks okay. But again, it's just going to be one of those things. I have to wait and see until I've got more of it crocheted. I won't know for certain until I reach that point. But now that I've got the first one in what I think is a good position, I'm just going to replicate that on the opposite side. And from there, I'm just going to keep crocheting in the round until I get to the tentacles. We are officially on round 72. Round 72. So that is what we're rocking so far. I'm surprised by like how much I like the body shape. Because this is like my prototype, there were like a couple of instances where I was kind of umming and ahhing and like going back and forth on whether or not I was, taking the right path when it came to the shaping. But no, I'm fairly certain at this point I've followed the correct one. Well, for the most part, at least. I might have gone off into the weeds a little bit, but we're not doing too bad. We're navigating this all right. But now that I've done like this much of the body, so up to round 72, I do want to sort of begin the tentacles, but not quite. And what I mean by that is I want to sort of lay a foundation for the tentacles and just shape the body a little bit more. And it is upon that sort of foundation that I will then crochet the tentacles. So for the next, I don't know, I'd say 2 to 3 rounds. It's not going to be many rounds, just a couple. But I want to, make some adjustments to the shaping, sort of create little like ridges like that. I don't know how well it's showing up on the camera, but something like to that effect. And then in between those is where I'm going to place the tentacles. All right, I think we're making really good progress. When it came to the shaping around the eyes here, I was a bit hesitant, a bit tentative, but I'm over that now and I'm feeling a lot more confident about the tentacles. But that could come crashing down real quick. Update time. Voila. The last several rounds, I can't remember how many off the top of my head, but I did those sort of off cam while I was, in bed, stuck in bed. So this gave me something to do, but unfortunately my bedroom is not, like a studio setup, so I can't really film. I did take a little bit of footage on my camera, so I'll pop that in here. But yeah, for the most part, I just did it off cam. But that is what we're working with so far. I'm liking the overall shape, so I think the body shape has worked out fairly well up until this point. But I'm not so convinced about the color changes. Perhaps I should have done this thing entirely one color, just a solid block of color. But I was hoping starting the color changes like earlier in the body as I've done would just help break up the tentacles a bit. Unfortunately, and I think I've said this a lot so far in this pattern, but unfortunately I don't think I'm going to feel or get the full effect of that, see if it really works, until I've crocheted the rest of it. So there's a lot of stuff up in the air at the moment. I feel like I'm saying a lot, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. But waiting and seeing involves a lot more crocheting. And the next thing that I need to crochet is the tentacles. I sort of, after I'd finished the last round, I sort of jotted down in my notes a potential pattern for the tentacles. Actually, you know what? We'll cut to the second camera angle. As I was saying, what I want to do is I'll start crocheting off to the side here, so you can see where the end of my round is. I'm going to crochet all the way along to the little ridge here, so I've already marked that out with a green stitch marker. But then I'm going to chain, work my way back down the chain, and just sort of repeat that over and over for all 8 tentacles. From there, if I continue working in the round, I'm just hoping that'll give me the shape that I need. But here's that phrase again, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe I should be making a hat instead. We have tentacles. It's taken like just over a week, but we finally have our tentacles. But do you want to know why it's taken so long? The final stitch count of the last round that I did, which is round 84 we're up to, is 1,872. So the final round of my octopus has more stitches in it than like the total stitch count of the entirety of some of the small patterns that I've made. So do with that information what you will, but I am like thoroughly enjoying myself. I'm so glad that I took the time to go back and work on larger amigurumi again. I didn't realize just how much I've missed it. And despite a couple of critiques that I have, some things that I've already noted down that I would like to change, I am really kind of happy how this thing has come together so far. What I want to crochet next is the underbelly piece, which is going to be like the mouth/belly area, but also the bottom section of the tentacles, which if the top section of the tentacles is anything to go by, that's going to take me another 2 weeks, because not only am I going to be crocheting those parts that I just mentioned, I also need to crochet the suckers. Now there's 2 ways that I'm thinking that I could do this. I could crochet all of the suckers separately and then attach them to the underside of the tentacles, or I can try and figure out a way to incorporate them into the pattern and make it like no-sew. Spoilers, I am heavily leaning towards the second option there, because I don't want to be crocheting a million bloody individual suckers and then having to sew every single one of them on. And then I just imagine all the ends that I would have to weave in, and the thought alone is enough to drive me half mad. Normally what I would do in this situation is, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Normally what I would do in this situation is use a popcorn stitch. That is usually my go-to for like details similar to suckers and things like that. But because I'm trying to go for a slightly more realistic look this time, I would like to make the suckers a little bit more anatomically accurate. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just something that's like a little bit closer to realistic on the spectrum than like bubbly popcorn stitch. And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea how I'm going to achieve that while also incorporating it into the pattern. So I'm going to have a bit of a think about that one, which I think I can do, because while I did say, admittedly, that I was going to crochet the underbelly piece next, I'm thinking I might come back in and finish off the siphons here. So while I'm crocheting that, I'll give the suckers some thought. Should I have done them in a different color? Maybe. Another thing that just crossed my mind is, are they a little bit large? Should I have perhaps decreased down a little bit more? But again, all things that we can workshop later. For now, I do want to get started on this underbelly piece, because this is probably going to take me a while. So I will see you all periodically over the next couple of weeks. We are making some progress. It might be slow progress, but it is progress nonetheless. So I have finished the round, what are we up to? It's round 27 of this underbelly piece, but if I was to follow the OG pattern, there would technically be 2 more rounds to go of the tentacles, but I'm not going to jump straight into that, because I think now is a good point in which to add the suckers. How I'm going to do so? It's been, I don't know, what is it, close to a week so far since I last checked in with you guys, and I still have no idea how that's going to be accomplished. So I'm going to put maybe a couple of thinking caps on and try and suss out some way in which I can crochet the suckers as part of the next round of the tentacle, because I really, really do not want to have to crochet them individually and then sew them on and weave in all those ends. Just not. No, I want no part in that nonsense. So we definitely have to figure out an alternate route. But, I mean, look at this thing. This kind of looks like one of those, like, bizarre critters you'd find, like, deep in the trenches of the ocean. That or, like, some sort of amoeba. But I don't care what it looks like now. I just hope that it works out with my original piece when we're finished with it. Okay, so starting off, the only thought I sort of have at the moment of how I can like accomplish crocheting these suckers into the piece is maybe working around the front posts, or the posts I should say, of the stitches using a front post single crochet. But let me change up the camera angle for you guys so you get a better view of this as I, you know, go through the motions and probably make a million different mistakes. So we are at the start of the round here, and I'm going to begin this round as I would have in the next tentacle round. So let's just replicate that. See, I've just crocheted that, so you can see sort of the shaping that I'm going for here. But now that I've reached this point, I'm even wondering if this like suck around should just be done entirely in single crochet, and then I do like the next round and like add that shaping back in. Because one thing I was considering doing, if I get down, no, I can't do that. My back is protesting that. All right, but one thing I was considering doing is making this underbelly piece 1 or 2 rounds less than the original piece, which would mean the tentacle portion would be thinner. But I was hoping in doing that when I attach the two, that the top of the tentacles would then curve around. So if this piece was underneath the underbelly as it is intended to be, when I join them, the top piece would like curve over it like that, giving the legs a little bit more shape. If I went ahead and added just a round of single crochet here for the suckers, that might aid me in that respect, help out with the shaping, because if I added the next round that was shaping, it still wouldn't be quite as thick as the original pattern. So those single crochet get us across the previous round of this middle section, but now we come up against the tentacles, and it is here I want to apply, if that is indeed the right word, the suckers. I don't think I'm going to be doing a sucker for every stitch in the tentacle round. So we might start off with like 2 single crochet. I'm going to single crochet in the top. There we go. And I'm just going to, where did I put my stitch markers? Oh, I think I left them in the other room. All right, pop you in there. But then I'm going to single crochet around the post. So a front post single crochet. And I've still got my stitch here. Because these are the double crochet stitches here, maybe I can chain 3, 2, 3. No, you know what? We'll chain 4, work into the back bump of the first chain. No, I don't think that's going to work, because I was then sort of thinking chain again. So chain 3 and then work like maybe 6 or 8 double crochet into the loop created when I join my chain. But I don't think I'm going to like that. Okay, so I think that was 8. I might have lost count, but it doesn't matter. This is just a practice one. So then if I slip stitch into the top of the chain, but then to get back down to where I need to be, which is here, maybe I can like slip stitch down the chain, slip stitch into the, or actually maybe front post single crochet again. And then pop back out into the next stitch of the tentacle. Okay, like it's not bad. Actually, that's better than I thought it might be actually. But it is a little bit messy. Now I could carry on like this and hope that when I do the next round in the tentacle, which won't include any suckers, that would clean up the edge. But of course, I could do all of this crocheting, like crochet all the suckers on all 8 tentacles, then crochet the next round, and it could look horrific. Do I want to risk it? You know, I think, like, given how that turned out, not terrible by any stretch of the imagination, I think I am going to risk it. So I'm going to continue down my piece here. So if I do 1, 2 stitches, maybe I can do like a sucker every 3. Let's just see if I can remember how I did that. So I front post single crocheted around that, then I chained 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then worked into the back bump of the first chain, chained 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and then worked 8 double crochet into the little circle I created. And then slip stitch in the top of the chain, slip stitch down the chain, so in the back of the chain. Then I single crocheted around the front post again. And then I just single crocheted into the next stitch of the tentacle. Like, that's not bad. I'm actually pleased with that. Much more than I thought I would be. So I'm going to continue doing this around all the tentacles. The one thing I will change though is to create different sized suckers. Over the double crochet stitches, which are like these ones here, I'm going to do double crochet suckers. When I get to the half double crochet, I'm going to switch that up and do half double crochet suckers. And then along the single crochet, I'm going to use single crochet. For the slip stitches though, I might just have to stick to the single crochet. But I don't even know yet if I want to do suckers like right on the end here. I might even stop at about this point, but we can figure all that out as we go. If someone asks you how you spent your Saturday, what will your response be? Because my answer is making suckers. This has taken me pretty much all day. We're going on like 6-7 hours now. Now, granted, I did have to take a lot of breaks, but I also had to do quite a bit of frogging and mathing. The maths just wasn't working today. I don't know if I buggered up somewhere or if my brain was just having one of those days. But that is the reason why I am using a zillion stitch markers in this. But the important thing is we got there in the end. And this is the final result. For a first effort, I think this is adequate, but I am thinking that there might just be too many of these things like along the tentacle. It might just look a bit like busy. So perhaps instead of doing a sucker every 3rd stitch, I'm considering changing that up to like every 4th stitch. And another thing I might want to try, in fact, I'm probably going to try that in the next tentacle that I need to crochet, is somehow anchoring the suckers to the side. So I might work through like, I don't know how easy this is going to be to see, but work through the side of the sucker here and anchor that to the actual tentacle itself. So that is what I will be doing in the second tentacle. And then if I have to make any tweaks after that, I'll do that to the third, so on and so forth until I find what I think is the best method for the suckers. The best sucker method. But if this first tentacle is any indication, that's going to take me a week. I've got 7 tentacles to go, and if they each take me 1 day, yeah, that's a week of work I'm looking at. But now, hopefully now that I've actually worked out what I'm mostly doing, it shouldn't take nearly that long. Remember when I was lamenting and partially joking that the sucker process might take like an entire week? Well, it turns out I was incorrect. It's taken almost 2. That is due in large part to the fact that I ran out of yarn. So yeah, I had to make a trip to the Spotlight website and then wait for my yarn to be delivered, which for whatever reason took longer than usual. I don't know, but it is here now, and thankfully I have enough to finish off this project. Like, I got so close. I am literally on the last arm here, and I've crocheted the first 3 suckers, so I've only got 17 more to go because I'm crocheting 20 in total. And just Tilly doing her usual thing. Tilly, come here. Yeah, Tilly doing her usual thing of making noise precisely when I start filming. You silly girl. Silly Tilly. But yeah, not much more to go on this. I'm going to get that done. And then, like, we're getting closer to the finish line. It is rapidly, well, I shouldn't say rapidly. Rapidly is probably not the right word to use. But we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, you hop down. I have some suckers to crochet. They're done. After almost a solid month of work, I finally completed both the underbelly piece and the main head body piece. It was a lot of work, but I am incredibly glad that I put in all that time and effort because, like, I'm just so excited about this project. I think it's coming together really well. But the next test of that is going to be to crochet the underbelly to the head and body. All right, so we're going to be joining these 2 pieces together. And at the same time, well, not at the same time, sort of as I'm doing that, I also want to work out how much stuffing that I need to add because I don't want the arms to be too bulky. So my strategy is probably going to be like no stuffing down the very bottom and then like slowly, very slowly, gradually add more and more up the arm until I reach the underbelly, which is going to have the most, but still not heaps because I don't want the body here bulking out too much. And after that, like, we're pretty much finished. There are a few other little details I want to crochet. I want to add in like a mouth and possibly a beak at the bottom here. I want to add pupils to the eye, but I'm also thinking about making a few different eye variations just because I want to see what that looks like. No pun intended. And I also want to add just a little bit of detail to the head and body itself, whether that be via, acrylic paint or if I add crochet on some rings. I don't know yet, but I can nail all that down later on. For now, I need to get this crocheted, so I'm going to need you, this color, and not you, but you, and then we can begin. It might have taken me all bloody day, but I have finally finished joining my 2 octopus pieces together. And I still think it looks okay, but I've definitely like identified some areas for improvement, which I will get onto when I make the next version. But to try and make what I do have work, there's just a couple of things that I'm going to add. And number one is going to be the webbing. I don't know if webbing is the correct terminology here, but that's the one I'm using. But sort of the webbing between the arms. Plan all along has been to extend that out and then sew it to the arm on either side of each piece of the webbing. So I'm going to go with that. Also, another thing that I did, or I should say didn't do, that would be more accurate, is I omitted the stuffing. Originally, I was going to add some stuffing into the legs, adding more and more as I got closer to the body and add the most amount of stuffing to the body. But like, to be honest, it just wasn't working out all that well for me. So I just removed what stuffing I had added. And as of now, there is no stuffing in the arms themselves or even in the body. And I think that looks much better than if I had stuffed it, because the arms, I probably should have filmed that and shown it off a bit, but the arms were just like a little bit too bulky, even though I added just a minimal amount of stuffing. But yeah, other than that, just a couple of minor things that I want to fix in the future. But that's also going to depend on how well this webbing works out. So let's get that started. And we can go from there, I suppose. So it has been over a month. Honestly, it's probably closer to 2 at this point, but I have finally finished my bloody octopus. And I do want to share it with you all. I'm going to share it with you all. But just before I do that, there is something I want to discuss with you just in regards to the channel and future videos. So if you've been, around here for a little while, you might know that I deal with chronic pain and some health issues. Well, over the last, I'd say it's like 10 months to a year now, those have been like slowly getting worse. And while I have been able to manage that okay so far, the last several weeks have seen sort of an acceleration of the deterioration, basically. And unfortunately, I've reached the point where I just cannot feasibly make one video every week anymore, which is why I've been gone for, I think it will be 2 weeks when I post this video. I just haven't been able to get this finished and out. And unfortunately, I think that's going to continue for a little while. My current pace it just isn't sustainable at the moment. So going forward, I'm going to be aiming to get out a video every 2 weeks, but just depending on what happens, that might... You right there, Tilly? But yeah, depending on what happens, that may turn out to be every 3 weeks or perhaps even one a month, just depending on how I'm going. I'm honestly just annoyed and disappointed about this because I love making crochet projects and then, creating videos of them. It genuinely brings me a lot of creative joy, and to have to reduce the amount of that is... It's a bit of a bummer. I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit bummed about it, but I have to prioritize my health. I can't completely wreck myself even more than I'm currently feeling by trying to like push out what would probably be like a really subpar video once a week. So it's nothing earth shattering. As I said, I'm just a little bit annoyed and disappointment, but yeah, from now on I will be doing a video every 2 weeks if I can manage it. And hey, opposite end of that spectrum, if I start to feel like a lot better, I will be returning to my once a week schedule, but I don't think that's going to happen for a little while, unfortunately. But yeah, now that that is out of the way, I do want to share my finished octopus with you all. Please do me a favor and ignore the paint job, but here we go. Octopus. Paint job aside, I kind of love this thing. The shaping, well, we'll get into more detail with that in a second, but the shaping of this thing has worked out, the top of it has worked out almost exactly as I wanted it to. I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled with how the eye section and the siphons have turned out, and even just the head shape itself. Again, look, the paint is kind of meh. I think we can admit that. I did bugger up. I know where I buggered up and how I buggered up. That would include, number one, I did too many spots and I placed them too close together. And number two, I did sort of an undercoat of paint. I was trying to achieve that more mottled look of like octopus skin. They're not usually just a matte singular color. And I wanted to try and create a little bit of that, or recreate a little bit of that variation. I did that, but then I painted the rings on top of that. And I shouldn't have done that. I should have just gone with the rings, because I think the rings on the octopus, like in this section, how well can you see that? Ooh, I think they look okay, but because I had that first layer of paint underneath the rings here, it just didn't apply to the yarn as well as these did. So they're a little bit like too bold. Also, I wasn't using the highest quality paint. The acrylic yarns I've got are just the ones we basically keep aside for my nibblings to use. So yeah, it's not great quality stuff. That didn't help. But the main problem in this equation was definitely me. I made mistakes. But you know what? It's the prototype. And speaking of things that I did wrong or would like to fix, the big one here is like the shaping of the arms. They're not horrific. I think they do kind of work as an octopus, but they're just, the bottom is too full. Like if I extend this, hang on, I've been using my scrap yarn bowl to hold my octopus like when I was painting it, and it's just sort of the right shape. It does a good job. So if I hold this up, to me, like the body is just, yeah, it's too full. I need to fix up the shaping of the arms at the top, but also like the webbing in between. And I have several ideas of how I can do that. But doing that is going to take a while because this octopus pattern is bloody big and I can't crochet very much in one session at the moment anyway. So I do want to come back in and sort of redo the last few rounds. And while we're on the topic of the arms, one thing I am like fairly happy with how it worked out was the sucker pattern. I kind of do need to go in and turn these little guys inside out and perhaps even sew them down. But that is a big project that I just don't want to deal with at the moment. But my main concern when crocheting these little suckers was that I could include them in the round and I didn't have to crochet them all individually and then sew them on. I mean, look how many there are. Just the thought of crocheting them all individually and then having to sew them on makes my hands like throb with pain. So I'm glad I didn't have to do that. Potentially, if I had gone that route, I could have made them look a little bit nicer. But like, to be honest, once I turn them all inside out and maybe sew them down if I can be bothered with that, I actually think that will look pretty damn good. So yeah, the sucker portion, I don't really think I need to change that up too much. I'm pretty happy with where I landed with that. But yeah, the body itself definitely needs a bit of work, but it's just really the last several rounds just to sort of nail down the shaping properly. I'm even considering just removing the color change portion entirely. I don't know if that really adds anything to the octopus or if it detracts from it, because my thinking was when I was doing this is that it would look more like the thinner membrane you see between each of the individual arms, but with yarn, it just does not have that effect. Maybe if my color choices were like slightly better, it could have leaned in more to that effect. But yeah, I think I might just go with like a solid body and leave the underbelly for the secondary color. But yeah, there is my octopus. I am just like so happy with, well, the first half minus the paint. Second half just needs a little bit of tweaking, not much, but yeah, overall I'm thrilled with it. I really love this, and I'm honestly so glad that I've gone back to my roots and worked on large amigurumi. I've really missed this. I know the process takes me so much longer than it used to, but it is like a genuine joy to work on. So I'm probably going to be doing this more in the future, just working on bigger, maybe slightly more realistic projects, because I'm loving it at the moment. It doesn't mean my videos will probably take a little bit longer to get out, but hey, I'm doing that anyway at the moment, so why not take advantage of the situation? But yeah, so that is what I came up with. And I think way back, almost a couple of months ago, I did say my inspiration was the first amigurumi that I ever created. I guess how it started and how it's going. If anyone interested, I will be putting a link for the pattern and tutorial of this little guy down in the description. Description is the word, description, so you can check it out for yourself. What you can also check out for yourself if you would like to is... And today's featured creator on the hookup is actually also one that I don't currently have any images to share, so you all get to stare at my face. No, actually, you know what? You get to stare at my octopus. You can stare at him, her instead. So today's featured creator on the hookup is Elena, and she says, I'm a self-taught crocheter. I learned during quarantine. I've made several amigurumi projects and I'm currently working on several written patterns. I might have mentioned this in a previous hookup segment, but it really is amazing how many people in like the hookup form have mentioned that they are self-taught crocheters and they learned specifically during quarantine. I mean, it shouldn't be all that surprising. We were all stuck inside for an ungodly amount of time, but yeah, it's just something I've noted. So anyway, if you want to check out all of Elena's links, they will be down in the description, and so will a link for the hookup form if you would like to apply for that for yourself. Oh, okay. Well, I just had to take a 10-minute coughing break and I have no idea where I was up to, but I think we're at the end of the video, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, octopus accomplished. I am going to be making, honestly, at least 2 or 3 more of these, which in my current condition is probably going to take like 6 months, but I will be doing it. I do need to make one for the written pattern. I do need to make one before that to A, make sure my pattern that I've got is correct, and B, you know, fix up all the areas I want to fix up. But also, like, if you've been on the channel a little bit, you probably know that I don't really mess with chenille yarns too much. I'm not a fan of the chunky stuff. I usually only use that sort of yarn when my nibblings request it. Not because I don't like the yarn itself. I think it makes beautiful plushies and amigurumi. I just don't really like working with it. But I gotta be honest with you all. In this case, I am considering it because I would absolutely adore a huge, soft octopus friend. So there may be a little bit more torture in my future. I'll put myself, you know, through the rigors of working with chenille yarn because I know the prize at the end is going to be a nice big octopus. But that is something that I can aspire to do, but I don't know if I'm actually going to get around to doing it. But anyway, there we go. Octopus done. Mini version for comparison. Thank you all for watching this one. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing. And I will see you in the next one, which hopefully will be in 2 weeks, but it might just take a little bit longer. We'll see how we go. I'll see you when I see you.